Paulina Lizer sitting in for Perry Atkinson. Well, September 11, 2001, nearly all American adults remember where they were and what they were doing. And it is especially true for those who lost their loved ones or maybe were directly affected by the attacks. And today we're joined in the studio via Skype with Lisa Luckett, who lost her husband on 9/11. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Paulina. Thank you for having me.
There's a lot I want to talk to you about today. It's been 15 years, and you're working on the book. You're an entrepreneur. You're a breast cancer survivor. There's a lot to talk about. But I want to start by asking you, what was 9/11 like for you? Can you recall 15 years ago? What was it like?
Well, of course, I have a pretty unusual 9/11 story because my husband, Ted, worked in the North Tower of the World Trade Centers for a company called Cantor Fitzgerald. And Cantor was the largest losses of 9/11. There were actually 658 people that worked for the company that were killed that day. So the interesting part of my story is that my husband walked down in the first bombing in 1993, which was in January at 12:30 in the afternoon. So they went back in with knowledge, and without realizing it, subconsciously, I tucked that away. And in a way, it prepared me to actually handle the real 9/11, the next one. And at the same time, we were in our early 40s. I just had a new baby. We were then now parents of 3, and Teddy was a walking heart attack. He was 40 years old, working on Wall Street, very stressed job, not eating particularly well, not getting a chance to exercise because of a long commute. So I kept literally running his death through my mind. And in a very twisted way, by doing that, it prepared me to handle it. I didn't know at the time. And to all the viewers out there, what I learned is your mind is such a powerful vehicle. You can actually get yourself just as torqued thinking about the idea of an event as the event itself. So what you never see or conjure is all the beauty and grace and love that comes and flanks the back of it. But that's a further part of the story. Anyway, so the morning of 9/11, after the initial shock of turning the television on and seeing, the black billowing smoke and knowing he was above it. So I actually knew he was gone. There was no way anyone could survive that. I actually bounced, and in the strangest way, I was fine and very clear. I was also the nursing mother of a 4-month-old, and nature doesn't let you go down. So in this very strange, surreal way, I was fine. So within an hour, 2 hours, I had a house full of people, and I just wanted to help them. And all they wanted to do was help me. And as a product of being raised in the 60s, 70s, 80s in America today, I was a woman and we could do everything. And I never wanted help. I didn't want to ask for help. That was a sign of weakness. Well, in wanting to help them and seeing the palpable pain and distress everyone was under, knowing there was nothing they could do to help any of it, I actually opened the door and allowed them to help me. And in doing that, which I later learned was surrendering, I was instantly filled with this gratitude and humility and grace. And the experience took on this beauty. And that I couldn't see anything but the silver linings. I couldn't see anything but the human resiliency, the incredible strength of who we are in a crisis. And here on the coast, from Boston to Washington, this wasn't a personal event. This wasn't a news story. It was very personal because 50 million people, which is roughly the population in that space, knew someone personally or knew someone who knew someone. So it was 1 degree of separation. So the event became obviously a global change. I knew in that morning, because I was blown so wide open, that I was given kind of prescient knowledge. My first thought being, oh my gosh, it could be so much worse. It could be 12:30 in the afternoon, like it was the first time, and those buildings could be full of people.
Well, several questions here. First of all, you were grieving as the world was watching. And while you bounced, I'm sure there were some people that it took them longer to bounce than it took you. Did it help or hurt the process of healing and grieving, having the whole world have their eyes on you? You weren't able to just privately sit and mourn, even though the death was private in this. Did you ever feel like your husband's death was lost in the thousands of others? I mean, what is it like?
That's really interesting. Nobody's actually ever asked me that. And it's very wisely said. So 9/11 for me was two different things. It was the way Ted died, a sudden death like a car accident would be, or a heart attack. So it was the way he was taken. Doing it within an international event meant that we were all kind of propelled to this place of a public status. And some people closed their doors and drew their shades and stayed inside. And I saw that people needed to touch me, and I saw that they needed to see that we were okay. Because within any experience like this, if there are others to compare it to, but any trauma, people looking in from the outside are projecting their fear of the event because we're all aware of our mortality. And terrorism was something obviously very new to us then. It's not so new now. We've become experienced in it. But it was so novel that I somehow intuitively knew, part of that awakening, part of that being so open, I intuitively knew that people needed access to me. So that kind of kept me buoyant in this interesting way. I was being held in this, literally this vast unconditional love. So the power of prayer, I'm here to say, works. And I wasn't raised in I was raised with a traditional religion, but that's not how I found my way to a spirituality. But I can tell you today that that energetic lift kept me buoyant. And gave me enough time so that I could heal. And I took my daughter and myself, my daughter was 7 and my other son was 4 and then 4 months, put us in therapy because you know what? All bets were off and no one knew what to do. This was so big. So I had tried to fit in the proverbial box for the first 40 years of my life, very unsuccessfully. I don't fit. And 9/11 actually blew me out of that box to be out of the box where I belonged all the time anyway. And in that time, and that what I mean by that is I trusted myself to do what I thought was right. And it became very simple for me. It was about my children. And it was about, here was an opportunity to shift the trajectory of their life. That I had 2 loving but dysfunctional, typical American families, if you will, that were not healthy. And they weren't helping. And so I became this pivot, if you will, to hold back the old thinking and scramble to learn it the new way so that I could catch my children up and do as little additional damage as possible so that they would have a potentially brilliant future. Because it was, I was very early aware that we'd lost so much, but we still had so much left.
Would you say 9/11 was in a way a healing process for you?
In fact, it was only about within the last year that awakening, that awareness hit me, in that 9/11 actually healed me personally.
Wow.
Because it gave me the catalyst to do the work. And while we all worry about what everyone thinks about us all the time, the stigma of therapy, I frankly couldn't care anymore. And I looked at it as the equivalent of having every emotional bone in your body broken simultaneously. If it was your physical body, you'd go to the doctor. So I in no way knew what to do with this, but I was determined not to let Teddy, my husband, and all the others die in vain. I was determined to make something good come from this nightmare. And that was from literally the first week. So I didn't know then what I was setting in motion, but I can tell you 15 years later, we're there. Wow. We are in a very good place.
In a couple minutes we have left, unfortunately, time just flies by. What would you tell someone who has gone through a tragedy like that? From what I hear, generosity helped, the love that you were surrounded by, the therapy. What advice could you give to someone who has gone through a similar situation as yours?
Well, to receive help, because that will humble you, because by receiving, you actually learn to give. That's not my originality. That's Eastern philosophy. There's a lot of people that know that, but it's hard as an American and our American culture to embrace that. But I really recommend that highly. The other thing is to remember you actually have courage. And one of my things is I think we've kind of forgotten how strong we are because we've kind of been in this reactionary victim mode kind of since, because we weren't really emotionally prepared to handle 9/11 because as a culture, we've never been tested. And we never grew that muscle. So 9/11 was kind of our first punctuation in a new dimension. And it changed the world forever, but maybe it actually opened the world as well. But for people going through any kind of trauma or tragedy, I would say relax into it. Let it happen. Allow it to take on the form it's taking. Don't put any shoulds near it. Take the word should out of your vocabulary. There are no rules to how you grieve. There are no rules to how you handle things. If you don't feel bad, don't make yourself feel bad. Nature will give you a break. And it can be nature or God or source, however you want to equate a bigger power than we are, that we all know is there. But just trust that it's a process and it will dissipate with time. Like the ripples in a pond, they get smaller and further apart given time. So a lot of water metaphors, it's not this crashing tidal wave of pain forever. That acute intensity is short-lived. And you never see this beautiful support that's coming with every trauma, with every tragedy. People are there for you. So it's your choice whether to let them in and let them help you. And I promise you, if you do, you will mend and heal that much faster, and you'll help them to do the same.
Lisa, I want to squeeze in one more question. What doesn't break you makes you stronger, and it's been 15 years. I know it's a personal tragedy for you, but as you look at America 15 years after 9/11, what do you see, and what message do you want people to get from this anniversary? Because everybody will remember. What can you tell America that will be remembering 9/11 today?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I would really hope that instead of taking the position we've been in for the last 15 years of why did this happen to us, that maybe we could spin it to a new direction and find out why, or find out what our part was in it, and find out why we were so emotionally unprepared to handle it, that maybe we don't know everything, that maybe as a result of being such a young country at 250 to 500 years old, depending on how you choose to count it, that we're really adolescent. We're kind of, with all due respect, kind of a little immature maybe. Maybe we're like that cocky high school kid that thinks he knows everything, but that's bravado. That's ego and built on a shaky foundation. So when we're tested, we break. But we're picking ourselves back up, and we have wisdom from this. You can see it in the recent news stories this summer, from the Orlando shootings to all the police intervention and shootings and all that unfortunate death this summer. What I see is we're getting used to it, which is not good, but the fear factor that's being prompted all the time now, because that's all that sells on the media, that we're in the habit of, that the fear factor has kind of dissipated because we're letting go. It's random. It's not just terrorism. It's kids that are very unhappy taking a gun and opening fire. So is it really about people who haven't been seen in society, that it's about being dismissed and disregarded, that in these poor individuals that take their lives and take everybody's lives with them, it's this murderous rage that comes from being ignored. So maybe we can study this a little bit.
Wow. Well, thank you, Lisa. What's the website where people can kind of catch up with you and follow you?
There's two. You can Google my name, or Lisa Luckett, which is LUCKETT.com. And my other website is called Cozmeena, which is a made-up name. It's COZ as in zebra, MEENA. So Cozmeena, and it's about knitting, and it's about a brand of lifestyle to take care of yourself as you take care of others, and remember that we are intuitive creatures and we all have everything we need right inside. And the sensory input we have through our 5 and 6 senses, will help guide us to what we need to know.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us on this very special, tragic day. Kazmina.com would be the website for Lisa Luckett. And Lisa, God bless you and take care of yourself.
Thank you, Paulina. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for being with us today.